All right, it is now time for the quality of life section of this update. Strap in, strap on. First of all, one of the most important... What happens in Vegas? I'm just kidding.
Yes, I am wearing pants.
So DevStream 173 has just ended, and it is the first DevStream since TennoCon, which means we have a lot, and I mean a lot, to talk about. This was a 2-hour DevStream, the largest amount of changes and quality of life changes inbound that we have ever had with a single update. Which means I'm going to need to make more videos in order to break down each one of these dev workshops, because I think there is 4 or 5. Now in this dev stream we got to see the new Warframe Dagath, we got to see Hydroid and the companion reworks, we got to see the shield gating changes, crossplay was mentioned, there is 2 new melee weapons, there is a lot of quality of life changes, so let's just jump in, keep it short, sweet and to the point, or as short and sweet as I possibly can. So first up, Crosssave is coming before the end of the year, and the Dagath update is going to bring the first set of code into the game for this system that will be laying the foundation for Crosssave to eventually be added. There is a Crosssave clan system coming, which will allow you to invite players from different systems into your clan if you want to, and that's coming with the Abyss of Dagath update later this month. Now this is Dagath, the new Dullahan or Caith based Warframe. If you are Irish then you might see some kind of similarity between Dagath and the Irish figure of mythology Dagda, who was the Allfather, but that's basically or loosely where they got the name from. She has got her own blade and whip called the Dorclave, and her lore is going to be given to us in story form, possibly by Mother again, I think. So how does she work, and how will you get your hands on Dagath once she's added into the game? Now Dagath's passive is called Abundant Abyss, where picking up energy or health orbs has a chance to give you extra health or energy. So basically a built-in arcane energize for energy and health orbs. Her first ability is called Ward Scythes, which is a burst of viral damage, basically an area of effect that swirls blades around Dagath, and apparently this synergizes really well with her second ability, which is called Doom. This is a conal attack in front of Dagath that puts a curse on enemies called Phantom Wrath. This causes her first ability to then deal more damage on those cursed enemies, so you're going to want to be bouncing her first and second abilities off one another. Her third ability is called Grave Spirit. This is a crit buff, but it will also turn you into a spectral form on a timer if you die while this buff is active. It is kind of a get out of jail free card, however, you get increased crit when this buff is active, so once you trigger Grave Spirit you've got increased crit. Now her fourth ability is called Rakali's Cavalry. Rakali of course was her loyal Caith, her horse, and for this she will summon multiple spectral Caiths which will trample down enemies in front of her. Her Doom Curse seems to be the main ability from what I can see, with her other abilities then bouncing off the cursed enemies and increasing her damage output. Now I think Rebecca also mentioned that Doom also strips defenses, which is absolutely great. Now to acquire the Dagath once she gets added into the game, you will have to grab Abyssal Beacon Keys from syndicates, which are kind of like treasure maps that will give you access to a haunted ship exterminate styled mission, where you will then run that and it will drop new items called something thorns. I can't remember what it was, maybe someone can clarify in the comment section below, and then you will use these thorns in order to build the Dagath's parts in a new dojo room, which is where you're going to see those parts off the vendor, so make sure you're part of a clan. Now next up is my favourite Warframe, Hydroid, and he's getting a rework. He's going to come with a new passive. His old passive where you would hit an enemy with a slam attack and it would spawn a tentacle is gone. His new passive enhances corrosive status effects. More vulnerable to corrosive is basically what it does. So 1 stack, I think they said instantly applies a 50% armor strip, which means when you have 10 stacks it would be a full strip. Now enemies will also have a watery kind of corrosive symbol above their heads, which means they are now vulnerable to additional corrosive damage. His first ability, Tempest Barrage, will no longer deal impact damage and now deals corrosive instead. It's also no longer a charged ability, it is an instant cast, and the augment for this ability will now change that damage type to viral damage. His second ability, titled Surge, now grabs enemies better once you surge along with them, and it will apply corrosive, so extra stacks on top of that vulnerability. And his third ability, Puddle, is gone. No more sitting watching Netflix inside your puddle. Instead of Puddle, he now has an ability called Plunder Armor. Any enemies in your view will allow you to steal their armor. This will also scale off the amount of enemies in front of you hit by the Plunder Armor, but it also scales off the amount of corrosive stacks that are affecting those enemies. So more stacks means more armor gained for your Hydroid, but it also, I think, scales up your corrosive damage output as well for Hydroid and the weapons he has equipped, which you can see on the bottom right of the screen, that kind of shield symbol, the armor one, which is a little bit similar to the effect that Atlas gains with his rubble. Now, his ultimate ability, Tentacle Swarm, now also deals corrosive damage to keep in line with the rest of his kit, all being corrosive, and it will no longer flop enemies around. Instead, it just hangs them there. So Old Man Hydroid now has a stiffer tentacle, no more floppy tentacles. Oh, and the augment for his third ability now will heal himself and of course teammates as well. So overall, the changes make it look like he's going to be really good at stripping armor. He's going to be quite tanky now with the additional armor on himself, and he's going to be dealing a chunky amount of damage as well. But again, we're going to have to get our hands on him and see for ourselves. Which leads us to the next segment, Companion Rework. Companions, we know with this rework, can no longer die. There's going to be a downtime on them before they get revived. But we know that some of the mods they're going to be adding are going to reduce that downtime when you're waiting for your companion to be revived. There is new interactive mods which will change how your companion will play, as well as they've changed apparently a lot of companion mods in order to support the life and the survival of those companions, like a new cloned mod which clones your companions when you spend 100 energy and will also increase your chances of getting bigger energy drops. They've also boosted the health and shield values of all companions to around 50% extra on top of what they have right now. They showed us a Raxa Kubro whose effective health was increased by about 70% or a little over, and next year they've said that they plan on revisiting companions again to possibly boost them even more if it's needed. But Pablo did mention about nerfing Charm, which he kind of joked about 2 or 3 times, which means it's definitely coming, right? Charm's getting nerfed. Which leads us to possibly the biggest change coming with these quality of life changes, and that is the changes to shield gating and shield overhaul changes, a system that has become the go-to for pretty much every high level build in Warframe right now. Any of you guys that run your endless missions against level 9000, you all use shield gating. So they're going to change that. Shield gating now scales off how big your shield amount is. The shield gating time now scales off of how much your shield is fully charged. So a 50% shield recharge would mean less shield gating duration, I think, once you'd get hit, so it would not be as long. There will be a dev workshop going over all of this in much greater detail, but they've said that shields will now give an additional 50% damage mitigation, which is a buff from the original of 25%, I think Pablo said. This also applies to shields on companions. Now, they've also said that the decaying dragon key method will no longer work with this update, but they are adding a mod in which will work in the same way as the old dragon key used to, but at the cost of a mod slot and not by equipping a dragon key. Shield mods now mostly, we're told, can change the delay, meaning shields will regenerate faster as well. Like I said, this is an absolutely huge change for any of you guys who run your endless missions, and it might affect a lot of your builds, or maybe it won't. We won't know until, I guess, everyone in the community gets their hands on it and gets to test their builds and test exactly how the new shield gating is going to work. But I am pretty sure that the community will have a new go-to setup within a week or 2 of these changes actually being added, if they're not already working on the math right now. Now, this is Grendel Prime. He's got the Xyloc Prime and of course the melee weapon, the Masseter Prime as well. He's coming with a Prime Cyandana, he's coming with the Oni Prime Ephemera, and he also is coming with his very own Prime trailer as well. Looks pretty cool. Honestly, not really a Prime bundle that I'm looking forward to, but Grendel is an overall really good frame. Now, the Abyss of Dagath update will have, like I said, the largest amount of quality of life changes that the game has ever added in a single update. There is a lot of changes to buffs and how the icons will appear. There is visibility changes, there is melee spam changes, there is changes to accessibility, but like I said before, they have got a lot of dev workshops up on the forum right now going over every little change in a lot more detail than I'm going to in this video. This is just a really quick recap. Now, they also mentioned at the start of the stream that there are huge changes planned for any of the future heirloom bundles, which we all know didn't hit the mark at all, and they held their hands up and said, yeah, look, we messed up, we missed the mark with these heirloom bundles, and we want to fix it for next year. So if more bundles do appear next year, I would totally expect them to be much fairer than the ones that they released this year, because that kind of overshadowed everything that was shown off at TennoCon, because a lot of people were still talking about how greedy the heirloom bundles were. Now, the Knights of Nabarus is returning again this year for Halloween with new cosmetic items to pick up off Dota, Cyandana's, Sentinel accessories, glyphs, and so on. There is a new Vampire Lotus skin, because of course there is, because Rebecca loves vampires, which has been a kind of Halloween thing. The Vampire Lotus for quite some time, but now it's actually going to be a skin in game. Soulframe will apparently be opening up its doors to a very small group of select players to get into pre-alpha demo in order to test the game out and make sure it is as workable as possible and to help the devs out. Sometime around December, I think Steve said, so you might get to test it if you get accepted in, but chances are it will be under NDA. Now, that's pretty much the dev stream. Like I said, it was 2 hours long, the longest one we have had in a very, very long time, going over a lot of really in-depth quality of life changes. But hopefully I've covered the main aspect of the dev stream. Either way, have a great day, and as always, thanks for watching.